Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness. It's time to have new conversations about mental health. Join Mara James as she guides us along this journey. And now, let's talk wellness.
Hi, everybody. Today we have Caren Paskel. Caren is an author, inspirational speaker, and nonprofit founder. Welcome, Caren.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Very grateful for the time with you.
It's so great to have you. And of course, you have this beautiful background. So let's just start speaking about those beautiful angel wings and your beautiful butterfly necklace, which we didn't coordinate because I have my butterfly necklace on too.
This is a symbol of transformation, as we know, the butterfly and the various stages it goes through. And I always remind myself with butterflies all around me, whatever type of wings, because we're here to fly. We have the potential to be free in this lifetime and reach our greatest potential. And I just believe that's so powerful. And I want to inspire myself every day. So it's a reminder when I see these wings, but it's also my logo for my nonprofit. And it's also part of my logo for my own personal brand is transformation. And it's always a part of everything I do and believe in and share. And the power of self-belief, the book I wrote, also has a butterfly on it because that power is within each one of us. And when we see it on the outside, it may remind us, at least it does for me, that it's on the inside and you have that power and potential. And so do I, and so does everyone.
I love that. So at what point do you think you can start this transformation process, right? I feel like, children and teens and like people have to go through their life experiences. Is there a certain age when it's possible, like that you would say, okay, now it's time to start focusing on the transformation?
That's a really interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. And I love this question because I was taught when I was on this spiritual journey, when I finally found, I call him my guru, a teacher that imparted the knowledge that I did not have of the universal values and eternal wisdom. I remember him saying that the spiritual development can begin at any time. So it's not something you wait to do if you're aware. It's something you do now. And most people say, I'll do it when I retire or I'll do it next year. And what he's saying is the starting point is actually where you're at. It's very similar from when I hear, and I owned a studio, yoga studios for a really long time, and I've been teaching for many, many years. And so many new students always say, well, I can't come to yoga until get more flexible. And you're thinking that's what you go to become more flexible. So you start from where you are. And as you practice, so just like anything, self-development, self-evolution, transformation is actually, it's a journey and it's a practice. And you don't need to have prerequisites. You have to be open, right? And so there are highly developed children, very, let's say, self-aware. I'm not sure what age would be appropriate, but the age that a child starts to ask questions about what am I doing here? Like about purpose, like if they show an interest, it doesn't matter what age, because there's books for transformation. And if there's a right teacher or coach or parent that can start, opening up their minds in an early age. So obviously, before a child can really speak, I mean, I don't know if that would be, but it's, you lead by example. So I'm not sure in terms of early ages. I just know that if you're aware, it can start now. It can start anytime. It's not for someone who's older. It doesn't even mean that someone has to go through a huge obstacle or challenge. It's if you would like to improve on yourself. I believe this should be part of the education in preschool. As soon as a child is learning anything, let's open up their minds to transformation and potential and eternal values in littler doses and in a language they can understand. That's why my nonprofit's called S.E.E, Self-Evolution Education. It's the education that makes your life not just a living. So we're all informed on, okay, you can go to school to make a living, and that's traditional education, which is wonderful. But for me, I was missing the life education. And that's why, even though I had the intelligence, I wasn't happy. I was pretty miserable. I had depression and anxiety and sleep disorders. And then I developed all these health problems. And which is why I really wanted to talk on your show, because I wanted to talk about wellness. And I felt like I had the drive, the instinct, and I just kept thinking there has to be something else. But also, I had a mother who's pretty fantastic, and she recognized in me that I could use something holistic. And when I was in high school struggling with panic attacks, she recommended me go to yoga. So that was the first experience that was different than any other experience, any other activity, sports, athletics, as I was into everything, where I really felt connected to a deeper source. And I didn't know what that was. So what if, I'm just proposing, right? There was, and I know it's starting to happen, but if we had that accessibility where a yoga practice, a spiritual practice, breathing, meditation was in, every education, like just as, not that they have to do it, but it's there. And so those minds, what is that? That inquiry when you're young and you're curious, I would love to see that. So really, there is no age limit for transformation.
That's beautiful. And I wonder how many people, and I want to go back to your story in a minute, but how many people say, okay, I just want to start growing, or like there has to be that crack in the rock to let the light in, right? So for my daughter, she had anxiety and depression, didn't want me with a therapist. So we started her with like a Reiki practitioner. She didn't know they were intuitive. She just thought it was like an energy massage, and, and then went from there. So start with, you said that you experienced some of those mental health challenges, and then you were really sick. Talk to us about that.
So when I had anxiety and depression, that manifested in my physical body. I didn't know it at the time. So I just thought that I had something wrong with me. Like it was a some disease of some sort, something that someone could label and say, this is what you have, and here's what you need to do, right? And so no one knew what I had. I had every single test, and I went to the both kind of doctors, Eastern, Western, and it was always supplements and it was always medications. And nobody could really tell me this is what is wrong with you. And it was a journey for many years. And looking back, I made everything worse by constantly talking about the symptoms and constantly kind of, I'm going to say, complaining, because that's what I was doing. And it just heightened everything. And so it didn't really matter what supplements I took or who I saw. It was this that needed to change. That was the transformation, my mindset. And I don't think that I realized that until I started to discover how powerful the mind was. And then it was that aha moment of, oh my goodness, what you're thinking about, how you're feeling, the emotions, the body responds to that. And when I started to shift my thoughts, my body started to shift. So I went to a place of, just like I said, chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, digestion problems, skin problems, just not feeling good at all for months on end. There'd be like a day that I'd have that'd be half, oh my gosh, is this what it feels like? I forgot what it felt like to feel good. And what I did was I just knew that the spiritual path, that was my savior. And it was only a matter of time. I didn't know how. And I obviously stayed with a lot of the supplements that I was taking, and I did what I could for myself to be able to function. I went to India twice for over a month to study from my guru and just be in that environment to soak up the knowledge. I was sick the whole time. just the whole time. I would drag myself to the lectures and the parts where he would speak, because that was the knowledge that I needed to feed myself, that I'd never gotten before. And it just light bulb after light bulb. And slowly, as I intellectually became stronger, I was able to harness my mind, and from it being all over the place, and kind of refocus the thoughts on these higher values and my purpose of delivering them, because I ate him up. I just, everything he said, it made 100% sense, and then I would regurgitate and just be able to teach it. Like that was always my gift. Is it came in, I would reflect, and I got it so quickly, and then I would just be able to share it in my own voice. And so I got to talk about how to transform yourself, and it was healing for me. I mean, that's really it, right? I was doing it for me, but I could share it with others. And slowly but surely, it did take many years. I am the healthiest I've ever been. I rarely get sick, and I have energy and feel good every day. So it's here. And I also decided to believe that I'm worthy of health. That was really huge. Like, you are worthy of health, and you don't have to be sick to be taken care of, because that was my old story. I mean, that's just how the family dynamic. I was sick all the time, and everyone felt bad for me and took care of me, especially my mom. Even though my mom was, she helped me become well by introducing me to yoga. This is why I came into all of this. But at the same time, it was, she took care of me and did all the things for me. So I never kind of built that mental strength, because I could just trust that, I can stay sick and things will be taken care of. But I didn't want to stay sick anymore, and I didn't want to be taken care of in that way. And that's kind of what I thought love was. And that wasn't true. And of course, my mother loves me if I'm well or sick. But to me, I had been that way for so long, it just developed into that kind of relationship where Caren's just always unwell. And that was my identity for a while.
Wow. How old were you, and how did you get introduced to your guru?
Well, first of all, when you mentioned how old, I had a kidney infection, and one of my kidneys was bigger than the other when I was a baby. So I did have a surgery at a young age, and I did have many years on antibiotics. So my whole, as a child, immune system was completely wiped out. It turned into a ton of ear, nose, and throat issues, then asthma. So my whole system was aggravated at a young age. Then I had the mental issues in high school, and I think the combination just blew up, right? Everything was, and so I got introduced when I did yoga, and the physical practice was wonderful. I loved it. And the things the teacher would say at 16, I think I was 16, that really turned me on. And here I was like, it was philosophical. It made sense to me. And so there was teachings, not just about the physical body, but about life. That's what I went for. And it wasn't until I was in my later 20s, after my divorce, that I started to read the Vedas. So the book was Vedas is the most ancient scriptures known to mankind, that the knowledge of life, of living, of prosperity, and of peace. And I didn't get that until after my divorce, so almost 30. I mean, I think I might have been 28. And the book I read was called Vedanta, and it means the end of knowledge. So it's the culmination of the highest knowledge to reach the highest self. And the way that it was written, it wasn't his thoughts, it was his writing of these values that are universal truths, right? And it just was so simple. It really just made so much sense to me. And I couldn't believe that I had not been introduced to this simple knowledge. I don't even know the word. Where was this? Like, why isn't this taught to everybody? This is something I felt so strongly about immediately, and I knew it was going to be life changing. And that just was the I think the catalyst for my rapid transformation after that, that allowed me to open up to the right teachers and mentors and all the the growth, the self-belief, the right people, the communities, and my business and where it was going. So it was just like this positive ripple effect that moved me forward.
Amazing. Do you remember, like, when you're saying the universal truth? What do you mean by that?
So there's laws, right, that are just, I say, time tested and true, meaning there's certain values that have been true in the past that are true now and will be true in the future. So anything that's real with a capital R, right? It passed that test where if you had a teaching and or a concept and it was an opinion, it wouldn't pass the test, meaning it didn't, oh, that wasn't true back then. And maybe it's true now, but who knows if it will be true. So there's these principles, right? These life principles. And I I hadn't been exposed to them, but they're in our DNA. I mean, they're just divine, right? And so we come from that. It's like energy can't be created or destroyed. We know that's true. No one argues it, right? That's one of the universal truths, it's just you never die, meaning this physical body may perish, but our energy lives on. And once I heard something like that, it was like, oh yeah. So why would I be afraid of death? I was so afraid of death when I was a child, and my parents didn't have this knowledge, so they couldn't really explain it. But this took all the fear away. I think that was why I was so anxious, even thinking about my parents when I was a child, them dying, that was fearful. And I thought I could not live without them. And then I realized, oh, everybody has this journey and we don't know how long it is. And you just keep growing and keep transforming. And, the concept of reincarnation up to a point is proven. And so I couldn't get enough of this truth in my life. Just give me more of it.
It sounds like it was something that your soul knew, your subconscious, but your conscious mind didn't. And then all of a sudden you started being told this information that resonated and you just knew it was the truth.
Exactly. And I loved the way that it was given as well. It was like, hey, this knowledge can only be taken, it can't be given, meaning I had to take it. So no one can push it into you and force and say, you have to, this is true, right? It was just, hey, these are the truths of life. Take them or leave them. It's totally up to you. That was refreshing because in organized religion and sometimes in families or at school, you're kind of pushed in the knowledge, even for an exam. You have to remember this. And then, of course, it just goes right out, at least for me, the other ear. So I was taught how to reflect, how to actually think for myself. And so that process was huge. I call it with my clients, the acronym is TRAA. It's TRAA, think, reflect, absorb, and apply. And so even in my own book, I say, hey, think about this, reflect on it, absorb it into your system, and then see for yourself, apply it in the world, right? And it's okay if you don't. It's really up to you. I learned that, education, it's not about pushing in, right?
Yeah.
It's about putting it on a platter and having a buffet and just say, here it is. And that's how it was presented to me. And again, it was just so refreshing. I ate all of it.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. And I love how you share that in your book. So we're going to take a brief break. And when we come back, we're going to hear all about your book, The Power of Self-Belief, and the nonprofit work you're doing. So friends, stay tuned.
We hope that you're enjoying today's Let's Talk Wellness podcast. And if you have a topic that you would like us to explore, we would love to hear from you. Simply email us at info@elfempowers.org. That's info@elfempowers.org. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back. Today we're speaking with Caren Paskel, and now Karen's going to share with us about your amazing book, The Power of Self-Belief.
Thank you. So, The Power of Self-Belief is really inspired by my late husband, David Prentice, who passed away a few years ago from brain cancer. He was diagnosed with brain cancer at 28 years old. He was 12 years younger than me. And this was a complete shock because he had no prior history of any health issues and nothing that would have led up to this conclusion. So when he had a seizure, and I thought he was just gonna die right there because I did not know what was happening. And he lost consciousness. And I think he hit his face on the way down, so his nose was bleeding. I mean, it was just so many things were happening. And then he almost wasn't breathing. Foam was coming out of his mouth. Luckily, I had my phone in my hand and was able to call 911. And turns out he had a brain tumor, an orange-sized brain tumor. And that shifted us big time because I had never been in a position to care for someone else. I mean, it's funny that we're talking about this, right? I was the one everyone was taking care of. And so all of a sudden, I had to take care of this man who was big, robust, strong, and so independent and mentally tough. And that really shifted me. I had to become way more mentally tough than I was. And it was a gift. It was a beautiful gift to be blessed with an opportunity to transform myself. And so I did. And 1 year after his surgery and diagnosis, he had another brain tumor that came back with a vengeance. It's called glioblastoma. It's a grade 4 terminal cancer. And this was the major life shift. And because everything had gotten better over the year. I mean, believe me, it was quite challenging with the seizures and the medications and the MRIs and the doctors and just even the recovery from the surgery. But the tumor left a little bit, was shrinking and shrinking almost to the point where they're like, we think it's gone. We think there's only scar tissue. So this happening, again, another shock to the system. And we knew something was off because he was having symptoms, but his last MRI was amazing. And so just in a couple months, boom, everything changed. And so he had to get another surgery, but I knew they said, 9 months to a year that he would live. And that is with treatment. That's with radiation and chemo and all the things. So they give you a death sentence basically. And he wouldn't take that. He really believed I'm going to live. And I supported his belief because I support him and myself. And I don't want to live. And he didn't want to live, even if he knew he was going to die. He didn't want to live 1 second thinking he was going to die. And that created a beautiful quality of life for both of us. We both had that belief. So, as he was declining, I kept having to step up as a human being, as a wife, a caregiver, a business owner, a home owner, a dog owner. And I just had to believe that I was going to be able to be this person that can handle all of this. And I was, and I did it with him being able to watch. And not only was I taking care of him, my studio was mandated shut during the pandemic. This was all during the pandemic. So I decided to close my studios because it was over 7 months and the memberships were declining. I was losing money every day, losing clients every day. And my landlord wasn't going to work with me on the rent any longer. And I knew it was going to be too stressful of a situation. And so I had to believe in myself that I could recreate my career. And I did. I took a coaching program, how to get my I wanted to present a program online, and I had done it in a workshop at my studio. It was called 11 Cliff Notes on Happiness. And it was kind of the condensed, shorter version of all these truths of life and eternal values in a high quality way that could be learned with ease for anyone. And talk about for children, even for teenagers. I was hoping that this would be something that anyone, because the books that I had read, not everybody would be drawn to, from my guru. The wording and the way he wrote, it's not appealing to everybody. So I thought, how about I create this with my personality, and other people are going to want this. So I thought, I want to get this online. This is God. I don't know how to do it. I didn't know the technology. So I invested in myself. I did this program. And let me just mention that this is the heightened worst time. My husband was every day falling down the stairs, having a seizure, constant calls from the doctor. I mean, this was the worst time. And I remember him saying to me, because we had another caregiver, his brother was living with us. He said he could speak still. I could still understand what he was saying. He said, you should go to the studio, because at the time it was still open, like for me to go there. It was closed, but I could go. He said, just like your office space. And that's where I created the whole program and did all the videos. I couldn't do it at home. So I would just go and do it and film and come home. And it was the saving grace. I would have never even thought about that. And then I shut my studio down after the filming of that. And I put it out there, and I sold the program. It was $3,500 to $5,000. And I did it for 3 months, and I coached people during the 3 months, and there was a community. And a bunch of people signed up for this. And my husband was like, you did it. You're doing it. And he got to watch this. He said, you're killing it. Like, you gotta keep this going. And, from there I had built more courses when he passed, but he got to watch this initial stage of my recreation. I was so kind of in it that I couldn't see myself. I couldn't see what he was seeing until I was on a call with about 25 women hosting a community win support call. And I was listening to all their shares and all their wins and all these transformations. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how are they doing this? And I thought, the power of self-belief. And I knew, and this was right after he passed, where I knew that it was the power of self-belief that did this. Like, I believed in myself because of my husband's self-belief. That was, he had it when I first met him. I knew it. It was glowing through him. And I was attracted to that because I didn't have that power to believe in myself. Lots of people believed in me, and I had all the skills, but I didn't have that self-belief until he got sick. And until he passed, it really, really came through. It's like, he gave me the baton of self-belief, and I chose to reach out and say, it's my turn now. And I will do this for you, and I will do this for me, and I will do this for anyone this is who I am now. And I just realized that that's how these people are making these transformations. I believe in myself, and that energy is saying, hey, you can do it too. They're like, oh, she can do it. I can do it. I'm going to believe in myself. And then, wow, they're able to transform. So that's where that title came from.
It is perfect. And you practiced what you preach. So who's better teacher than you? So you say the practice of self-belief, does it encounter any thoughts about like believing about, something greater than you?
Absolutely. Self-belief, the S is capitalized because we believe we're Caren. I'm Caren, and I actually have curly hair, but today it's straight. Or, I'm a yoga teacher, or I'm a coach, or I'm a nonprofit founder, I'm a writer. These are all titles that change all the time, and there's only one thing that remains the same, and that is your conscious divine, energy. And so that's the self. And when you realize that you're made of that, that's the most powerful form of belief, because that divine energy, right, is anything's possible. And when you start to connect to that energy, you start to realize that anything is possible if you believe in your higher self. So yes, it absolutely is about this discovery of who you truly are. I had already been on that path, but there was something that was still kind of in the way. I was staying small, and I wasn't fully believing in that. I knew the higher self existed. I knew that yoga meant union to that higher self, and that's the path that I was on. But I didn't decide to allow myself to be in that power until David got sick and I re-identified my whole life and self with that power within. And I left the old story behind of Caren who is introverted, Caren who's staying small, Caren who doesn't want to think big, and Caren who doesn't want to have conflict and only lives in this little bubble, because I couldn't be that person to be the best person for David. And I decided one of those universal values, is service. And so I decided to be of service to him. And that meant getting out of my own way and fully believing in that greater power. I mean, you can call it God, you can call it source, we can call it, consciousness. There's so many terms for it. So yes, it absolutely involves a greater force that is within you and everyone and everything.
That is just beautiful. You definitely earned your beautiful colored wings behind you.
Thank
Wow.
you.
And having David, like the best joy he could have seen as he was transitioning is seeing like your transformation, right? That's just so phenomenal.
Yes, and I talk about this in my book. I remember our third wedding anniversary. That was our last outing, and he was able to speak in a way where I could still understand what he was saying. And this was in September and he died in October. So it was only a month away from his death. And he just had tears in his eyes. This man never cried, and he was just crying. I love this story. I love sharing it because it's so powerful. And he just said, I'm okay to die because I never thought, he said, I wanted to change the world. Remember, this is a 30-year-old man, right? He said, I wanted to change the world. And I didn't ever think that I was going to change you. He said, I knew you were amazing. I thought you were incredible. But what you have created and what you've done, the woman you've become, I know you're going to be okay. He said, you're a badass. You're killing it. And I just, again, had that moment of like, oh, oh my gosh, wow. Because I didn't even realize how much of the power of my self belief impacted him and allowed him to let go, because
Mhm.
he was so scared. He would never tell me, but he was so scared of leaving me that I wasn't going to be okay. And now I got to share with him the peace of, he got to be at peace. And so he didn't have to keep fighting so hard and feeling that stress. That was a huge burden that I didn't even realize he was carrying until he shared that with me.
Yeah, the guilt he must have been feeling. And then you said he wanted to change the world, and he gets to through you, which is so beautiful.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So now tell us about your nonprofit work. It's the Evolution Education Foundation, correct?
Yes, see, and that is to see the change in the world, which is, in you, obviously. And I see helping caregivers. I was a caregiver and I wasn't a patient. So my mission is to help with what I know, how I help myself, right? And so I wrote The Power of Self-Belief, and I launched a self-caregiving program to empower caregivers with self-care practices, and also sending my book to them, because I think that reading a story of something inspirational where you still read about the challenges and the hardships and everything we went through, but you're reading the teachings, what I learned and how I thrived versus survived, and how I healed and how I felt blessed, even in the seeming worst scenario, and how we made the best of the situation when he was alive. I think more inspirational books are always going to be helpful and amazing for the world, because there's so many things out there that at least people have told me, like, all the not all, but many self-help books on loss are heavy, and sad. And so I wanted to share positivity and uplift and support. So I have this Facebook group, and in a very, very short amount of time, there's almost 300 members, and it's all caregivers or caregivers who have lost a loved one. And we have a wins channel that's very engaged, where we share our self-care practices, even if it's I went on a walk for 20 minutes, because I want everybody to know how big that is, to say that I matter and I'm worthy. And if I'm taking care of myself and giving to myself, I'm going to be able to care and give more to my loved one. And so, and there's so many people, and even myself, that got really, really sick while I was caring for David. And I realized it was because I wasn't caring for myself in the ways that I needed. And so I talk about that as well. It happens to the best of us. It happens to yoga practitioners and people on this path. It happened to me. But thank goodness I realized, if I don't put myself as a priority, then I won't be able to take care of David. When I was in the hospital for 3 days, I wasn't able to take care of him. So I started to take care of myself better and asked for more help from other people as well. And that was a godsend. So my support group and my nonprofit is to provide support from me, who I've gone through this, and also other caregivers, so we can come together and feel less alone and more empowered. And I also give all my resources. My online yoga classes are given, so they're free. You can join the group, or I post them in the group. My book, I have a program called Daily Inspirations with 7-minute positive inspirations for 365 days. And they have access to that if they want it. So all of these things to help with mental, spiritual, physical well-being and help. I as much as I can give everything, I am motivated to share that and give.
That is so beautiful. And you definitely had that, with your own health growing up and then your husband. And it sounds like it turned out to be such a beautiful story. And now that you get to give back and give to others, we are so grateful for you. What is the best way? We'll put the show link, we could put the Facebook link in the show information. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I'm out there, and I'm not one of those people you can't get in touch with. So my email and my phone number is all on my website, carenpaskel.com. That's probably the easiest way. Yes, I'm on Facebook. I have a personal Facebook page, Caren Michelle Paskel, and a business page, Caren Paskel Self Evolution. So please feel free to reach out. I'd love to connect.
So wonderful. Thank you to all of our friends that are out there watching and listening. And thank you, Caren, for this amazing godly work that you do in the world. You are amazing.
Thank you so much. So are you. It's been such a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk Wellness. This podcast has been brought to you by the Extraordinary Lives Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. If you would like to listen to more conversations like this, we invite you to subscribe to our mailing list at www.elfempowers.org to be notified when our episodes are published. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you our next conversation on Let's Talk Wellness.